Johnny Arcane by Jim Nail, read by Jim Nail. Chapter 11, The Principles of Electricity, Part 2. Frankie Fulcrum's hands trembled as he turned the pages of the book. At certain passages he gasped. His mouth fell open, and he placed the palm of his hand on the page and caressed it as if it were a lover. When at last he closed the book and looked up, his eyes were brimming with tears. "This is the reason you came, Johnny Arcane. Birdieman was right in the first place. You are the return of Borderbinder, but in a different way than we thought." They left the laboratory without another word, Johnny and Jocko. Johnny in the lead, his thoughts darkened. So absorbed in the pages of the book, Frankie barely saw them go. Out in the meadow, people were cleaning up the rubble left by Springfest. There were food scraps everywhere, turkey bones and apple cores, and the rinds of winter squash, and scraps of clothing trampled in the mud, especially around the silo. Mud spatters rimmed the base of the silo. At the center of the meadow, the banner pole had been snapped in two, as if by a bolt of lightning. Two women were wringing muddy water out of the remnant of the winter wolves. "Something's wrong," said Johnny. "It's cold." Jocko pulled on the sleeves of his thin coat. Breakfast was over, or perhaps it had never been, but smoke was rising from the log house chimney. It was a strong attractor. It pulled them toward the big wooden doors. There were only 3 people in the long hall, other than the scullery workers banging pots and pans in the kitchen. The mayor sat at a table propped up on one side by Bearclaw and on the other by Ant. He was holding a rag to his left eye. The skin around the rag was purple and puffy. When Ant saw Johnny and Jocko, she jumped up and Birdieman winced in pain. "They're back," she cried. "Johnny, Johnny, there's a message." She tried to run to them, but Birdieman caught her arm and pulled her back to her seat. "What happened to him?" Johnny rushed forward. Bearclaw held up the palm of his hand. "Slow down, Johnny. One thing at a time. You want some barley tea? Jocko, get us all some barley tea." Jocko went straight to the sideboard by the scullery where the mugs were stacked. Bearclaw let go of Birdieman's arm and the mayor listed toward Ant. "You got in a fight with Tiller Hogpen," said Bearclaw. "It was a bit of a strange night, the second of Springfest. Sit down, Johnny. Jocko will bring the tea. This involves you directly." Johnny sat. Jocko appeared with 5 mugs of barley tea on a tray, but Birdieman waved his away. "Never touch this stuff," he mumbled. They settled for a while on the big hearth. The fire crackled. "A messenger came yesterday," said Bearclaw at last. "He was dressed like a blackcoat, but he had the armband. He scared some people. Tiller and some others went out and got clubs from the woodpile. But the smart ones, they just got close to the man and sniffed at him. He didn't smell like a blackcoat, so they relaxed. But after the messenger left, things got strange. It was good until then, just a regular Springfest. The turkey was good. There was dancing all night, the first night, even without you and Jocko. But then, after the messenger left, the abstainers got to heckling. First there's cows and then there's black coats. That's what they said. Burly Man said. Burly Man raises the rag, exposing his swollen eye. You can leave, I told him. Just leave us alone. But they didn't leave, continued Bearclaw. They just kept on. They wanted to fight. Especially Tiller. Tiller wanted to fight even though he says he's not an abstainer. And now you see the damages, our woundable mayor. After that they left, the abstainers. Tiller went with them. They knocked down the banner pole on the way out. Burly Man pressed the rag back to his eye and slumped forward. It was then that Johnny saw the parcel on the table, a flattened bundle wrapped in dried leaves and bound with a strand of sedge. Aunt shuffled it toward him with the tips of her fingers. The message is for you. Johnny's whole body began to quake like a cottonwood tree. He grabbed the package and ripped off the leafy cover. The message was written on paper, real paper, like the paper of the book. The handwriting danced on the page. He could not separate the words from each other. He dropped the letter on the table. Read it to me. Aunt picked up the paper with steady hands. But as she scanned the message, her eyes pooled. She lowered her lids and blinked away the tears. She raised her eyes, squared Johnny in the face, and read, My dear Johnny, on the morning of the 4th moon, they will be moving us to the flesh mills of iron weed. There we will be killed. Not all at once. The work we do there will kill us. We will be marching on the Onyx Highway with the Blackcoats. You will not recognize us. We will be dressed like them, but there will be no other Blackcoats on the road that day. If you must kill someone, kill the man they call Glass Darkly. If he is dead, the others will have no one to follow, and we may be able to escape. Last night, I heard people talking on the other side of the wall. A man said that the time is coming. Johnny Arcane is in King Corn. There's a man that stands outside my cell every morning. He dresses like a Blackcoat, but he wears the yellow armband. No one talks to him. Here, the only people who know about the armband are from the other side. So I know he's waiting for someone who needs to send a message across the border. Tomorrow, on my rounds, I will give him this message. Johnny, whatever happens, we will be together in this world or the next. Lucy. A silence fell on the long hall. It was like Lucy had been speaking the words as Aunt read them, and she ended so abruptly, and there was silence. In all the parts of his body, Johnny could feel his life being remolded by a pair of large hands. I have to leave. Now. I can't wait another day. Aunt dropped the letter on the table and folded her face into her hands. Bearclaw reached out and placed his palm on her shoulder. He looked at Johnny. Come to our house. We can pack you food and supplies. We must send you off. in a proper manner. But which way will you go? I've never heard of a place called Ironweed. It was late morning. The day was hastening on with a sense of urgency. The friends had reconvened at Bearclaw and Ant's, even Burlyman and Frankie Fulgrim, who leaned heavily on his crutches, his back against the wall. Ant was holding a spatula while griddle cakes sizzled on the stovetop. "There have to be places we've never heard of," said Johnny. "It's not like there's a wall in every one of the 4 directions." "Ah," said Burlyman, "Borderbinder speaks." "Well, people must realize it," continued Johnny. "How could they not? Just think about the stars, or try to imagine a mountain that has only one side. There has to be a backside to every mountain. Every lake has to have an opposite shore." "Oh, we realize that, all right," said Burlyman, "but we've been taught from birth not to. All the myths and legends, the superstitions, the only place we're allowed to realize it is in our dreams." "More like our nightmares, I should think," said Frankie, shifting his weight. Bearclaw sat with Johnny's map of the known world in his hands, folded into a quadrant. With King Corn at the center, he was tracing a line with his fingers. His thoughts seemed distanced from the conversation. "Well, listen. The Blackcoats always come down from the north, and they head back north after they've done their mischief. I think north is the direction. Look here on this map. The northernmost town is Cabbage. I've been there. What Johnny doesn't know is you don't have to cross the river at Sputum. There's a trail through the North Woods. Just before that trail veers west, there's another trail due north. Once when I was coming back from Cabbage, I saw some Blackcoats marching north on that trail." Johnny spoke. "Well, anyhow, if I was going to cross a border, I always thought it would be the northern border because it's the closest." "And the closest to tractor," added Frankie. Ant draped an arm around Johnny's chest from behind, the spatula still in her hand. "I wish you didn't have to go." Bearclaw smiled and winked. "Keep telling you, Johnny. She's still in love with you." They settled down to a meal of griddle cakes and grilled onions. Bearclaw spread the map on the table and they studied it together. Each one of them knew towns and roads that Johnny was not aware of, even after 5 summers messengering. Using a charcoal pencil, they filled in the blank places with names like Hawker's Falls, Laughing Cat Bridge, Wincherville, Dirty Little Secret, Salivation Pond. The map got denser with lines and drawings, but always it fanned out into sparseness at the borders. It was decided that Johnny would take Bearclaw's advice, following the north woods around Sputum and taking the unmarked cutoff just before the switch back to Cabbage. Ant stuffed his backpack with the rest of the griddle cakes, plus some dried meat and apples, some hard bread. Bearclaw gave him several bottles of corn oil, some flints, some charcoal. Jocko said, "We should make some music before he goes." "Boy's anxious to be on his way," said Bearclaw. "Perhaps he doesn't have the heart for music." Johnny knew Bearclaw was right. He could feel the restlessness in his body, as if small legs inside his legs were already treading along the road. But He knew Jocko was right as well. Let's play one song, tuned, something we know as a token. What shall it be? Ant spoke without hesitation. Happy to meet, sorry to part. Johnny took out the mandolin and tuned it to the fiddle and the guitar, while Jocko thumped the catgut impatiently. They started playing. Before the first verse was over, they all had tears in their eyes, even Birdie Man, even Frankie. And they played the song again and again for a long time.